Hello everyone and welcome to session 4. In this brief video I wanted to go over your ER diagrams, as you will be seeing that this session as part of a hands-on part of your exam, as your exam will be a both written and hands-on to complete your exam for this week. So you will have two parts. So I want to take a quick look at how we've led up to this part with the hands-on part, and where we've done our normalization of data in our ER diagrams. So we'll take a look at what got us here, and hopefully it'll help clarify a little bit as what to be expected for your exam. Now, as you see from last session, I gave you the answers for the normalization aspects from session 2, so you kind of see how that data should be arranged in tables and the different entities and everything like that. And then this week, you were supposed to have turned in the ER diagrams. Well, let's take a look at how we went from our normalizing data to putting that into a pictorial type sense in which we have a diagram to represent that data and the relationships. We had 3 different files that had some raw data like you see here, and we saw all this information. There was a lot of repetitive data, and as we went to normalize, we know that the overall objective of normalization is to eliminate that data redundancy. So as you work through this, you figured out, okay, what tables could I separate all this data into, and within those tables, what entities would I have? What columns would I have? And then beyond that, we saw what type we wanted to develop, what type of relationships we'd have within those tables. So for session 2, we took this raw data and we put it into some good, clean information within tables. So we took this raw data and we put it into these tables: an instructors table, classes table, class enrollment table, customers table, employees, job titles, dealers, and booths. Okay, great. I have that information. These are all the fields or the columns we're going to have in our, or entities that we are going to have in these tables. All right, now how do I make all of this? How do I show the relationships? So whether you used Visio, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever tool you use, I was fine with. I know some people used the link that I sent out, that because it made it kind of simple, was the www.draw.io link, and I'm glad some of you found that helpful. So let's just take a look at an example of what this data looks like into an entity relationship. Using Visio, here are all the tables and the relationships that I've got for that first lab. You can see we have the instructors, classes, class enrollment, and customers tables here. And you can see I have all the information in the instructors table that I had listed here when I did my normalization of the data to eliminate that data redundancy. Same thing with classes, class enrollment, and customers, all listed here. And you see, based on our needs, we have primary keys and foreign keys. Hopefully you recall that our primary keys are just those keys that uniquely identify a record in our table. There cannot be any duplicates here. Our primary key is unique, and it will identify the whole record of information in that situation. And then our foreign keys are just a field in our table that is a primary key in another table. So since instructor ID was a primary key in our instructors table, it is a foreign key in our classes table, because our primary key that uniquely identifies all of the records in this table is our class ID. There will only be one class ID listed per record. And you see that that is the relationship between these two tables, is our instructor ID. Same way with classes to class enrollment, we have a relationship between these two tables with our class ID field. And then our relationship between class enrollment and customers is the customer ID, where customer ID is a primary key in class enrollment, and it is a primary key here, but the relationship between the two is that customer ID is a foreign key here when it's in a relationship with customers here. So, and you can see we have the line depicting our relationship and how that relationship is evaluated as. Now we also have our other tables here for dealers, booths, employees, and job titles. Here we have employees, job titles, dealers, and booths. That was in our normalization answers. You can see all of those fields are listed here in the appropriate table, and our primary key and foreign keys have been identified as well. In Lab 2, we had this raw data here with employee ID, employee first name, our last name, but we have a lot of redundant data here in these classes, as well as you can still see some over here where like Virginia Sanchez took this defibrillator class, but Virginia also took a child infant CPR class. We had to normalize that data to reduce that redundancy, set up some logical tables, which we did. And you can see that we had, based on that information, we normalized our data to where we had 4 tables: employees, class taken, class offered, and providers. And I gave you that information last week, and then you needed to put it into an ER diagram. So if we look at this data in our ER diagram, here's an example of that, where I have all 4 tables listed and the relationships of each table. To our employee ID, it's a primary key. That was what uniquely identified each record in the employees table, was a primary key in our class taken, as well as a primary key, or foreign key. And you can see we have lots of primary keys and foreign keys in here based on their relationships with other tables. We have our classes, which as you can see, our primary key is our class ID, but when we have our relationship between classes and class taken, it is a foreign key to our classes ID in our classes table. And you see the relationship between our classes table and providers, with the providers ID being a primary key here, but with our relationship to classes, it is a foreign key in our classes table. Now let's take a look at our third and final lab. Here we have all that raw data from our third lab. There's just a ton of data, a lot of redundancy, and we wanted to normalize that data so that it would reduce all of that data redundancy. So we took all this information, we made our tables as such. We had 5 tables that we pulled from there: households, customers, class enrollment, classes, and the instructors for those classes. Once we had our data normalized, then we wanted to then show our entity relationship diagrams on the tables, what was their primary key, and as you can see, we have primary keys indicated in bold if you hadn't picked up on that yet. And then we wanted to show the relationships between tables where they could have a relationship that existed. So when we created our entity relationship diagrams, you can see all 5 of those tables are listed and their primary keys and foreign keys identified, and relationships are relationship lines going to each of the tables where those relationships could be identified. Well, I hope this information helps with you as you move towards doing your hands-on part of your exam for this week, so that you understand what we're looking for. Hopefully the last 2 weeks of providing this information to you has helped make that information a lot better, and that when you do that second part of the exam this week, the hands-on part, makes everything a lot more seamless, and it all kind of comes together now. Once again, this is the hardest part of the course. I think you'll find the weeks after this a lot more enjoyable. Thank you guys for sticking through with it and all the hard work that you do each and every week, and good luck on your exams.